Hello, Shaw. Um, I
How's
did
it going?
actually turn on. This is not Shaw. Um, yes, I did actually turn on the live stream. So
Okay.
this is my first time that I've used one stream to actually allow this to be both on my Instagram. So let's see if it's actually live on my Instagram and on the YouTube channel for code borging. Um,
Well, good luck. Getting all the tech infrastructure set up and working together can sometimes be challenging.
yeah, exactly. And let me make sure that I'm muting this
I'll probably be
before
off
I
video
test it.
most of the time here if you don't mind, just because I've got still that same flaky Airbnb connection here. So just a heads up on
Yeah,
that.
if you don't mind hanging out for just a few minutes until someone else is willing to be on screen
Yeah,
with
no
me.
problem at all.
Oh, um, wonderful. And now let me check to see whether we're live on YouTube too. Um, I like the idea of giving people the option to see us wherever they're comfortable seeing us. Okay, great. While we're waiting for people to collect, including our star for the meeting, I thought it would be fun to have a little conversation about future topics. Without checking with any of you friends, I realized that I've never um, really studied CUDA. And given that, we're interested in AI in this group, I thought it would be really cool to get a kind of a very practical intro to CUDA for people who are already programmers, but who generally find um, programs run pretty fast. Um, why is it that when I'm looking at my live stream, I don't see my own face here? Um, that's interesting. It's what camera is it using? No matter where I put my face, I am not seeing myself on oh, I guess there's a
I'm on
huge
YouTube. I'm
delay
seeing a
with
side by side of you, Eric, and myself. So I think maybe everybody that's on video is showing up on the YouTube live stream.
um okay, so that the live stream on Insta is hugely delayed. So presumably if I wait long enough, we will see I will see me. Wow, it's really delayed. And given that there's nobody but me watching it. Anyway, okay, so if people would be interested in talking for a sec about assuming we do a session maybe next week on programming a GPU, does that sound intriguing? What about program? Okay, so we have definitely one upvote. Jim, do you want to unmute yourself and talk about what about GPU programming would you like to learn, if anything? Oh, Gary, you seem to be willing to unmic here. Yes, you're an upvote also. What would you like if you what kind of examples would you be interested in hearing about, Gary? You're
I don't
open.
know.
Okay, this is interesting. I am now seeing people's maybe someone can give me some insight here. If I share my screen, nope. Oh, Justin, good. Glad
Hey
you
there.
are here. It
Wouldn't
would have
miss it.
been less less fun here when I don't see my own face on my Instagram here. But At least it seems to be working well on YouTube. Okay. Let's see, what time are we? We are 3 minutes after the start. Yeah, so does anybody have any special requests, assuming that next week is an intro to GPU programming, probably in CUDA? Um, what uh, what kinds of examples would people be interested in AI-ish examples, finance examples, actually graphics examples? What do people want to know about CUDA, if anything? Jim, do you have a comment? Lan Yang? Okay. Apparently people are not particularly wanting to comment. Justin, maybe you want to start with a little bit about yourself. So if people come a little bit late and they miss about you, but they won't miss so much of the content.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Justin Beall. I've been programming for like 17 years or so, maybe 18 now. In the past couple years, been digging real deep into the AI space as far as generative AI. Artium, where I work, they've kind of tried to position themselves as like an AI first consulting. So they've actually invested a lot into their engineer and team, making sure we could do things from like actual be ready for client projects to actually using the tools for productivity. And that's where a lot of this started. So like I first started out was just using ChatGPT to like some fancy prompts I was writing back and forth. And then I actually worked on a project for a ticketing company that sells tickets for events, and we built a pretty custom RAG model using OpenAI chat completions and a Pinecone vector database. We'll go over that a little bit in chat. So I got some hands-on experience, and then I've been using Copilot and ChatGPT, and I also like Cursor SH is my favorite, which will be the IDE that I'll show some code in. It's just a Mac friendly Copilot on steroids. It's just got GPT-4, or you pick your model built in, some other stuff. I was in the National Guard. I got a wife and kids. Um, I like to mow my grass on the weekends, my dad activities. I have a garden. I don't know. Is there anything else anybody wants to know?
Okay, I'll jump in with the first question. Yeah, so helping us understand the use cases for the kinds of tech that you're going to be teaching us about, like what kinds of content do you want to produce? Why do you produce it? What are the challenges that you were hoping to overcome with your approach? It's kind of, if you just give us that kind of context, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so what I tend to see a lot of is there's a lot of negative connotation about using like ChatGPT and other things to write articles, to respond to emails, to do things of that nature. But that's when you're using the vanilla ChatGPT and it knows nothing about you or what you're trying to do for it. Or if you're trying to even, one of the examples I got set up is like trying to use OpenAI assistants to create a natural language product search. So we'll go over this, but the idea is if you customize it, give it a bunch of tone, a somewhat of a personality, things like that, it doesn't look like it was created by chat as much, and it uses your actual information when it creates things. So, like I've uploaded my resume, my bunch of blog posts I wrote, LinkedIn stuff, Twitter stuff, a large corpus of information that I've collected over time, and use that so that way when I say like, let's talk about pair programming, it's not like whatever ChatGPT thinks about pair programming. It's about my specific things I have written about and posted about for pair programming. Or even when I respond to a recruiter message, which we'll do live here, it'll actually go through and it pulls my context and it knows, if they say, "Hey, I'm looking for a React dev," it's like, "Oh, I have React experience. Let me include that in there."
So one
In
of the use
addition,
cases is responding to recruiters. Do you do it kind of completely unsupervised, that it's it responds to the recruiter without you,
No,
or
I go through and I actually just usually I'm like, hey, I want to respond politely to some recruiter messages, and I go through my recruiter messages, the things that I've just queued up over a week or so, and I just take the whole message, copy and paste it in there, and then it spits something out, and I usually copy and paste that and put it back into LinkedIn. I've also used it to update my LinkedIn profile and everything, my resume. So I'm using right now, Julius is on. We're developing a course about intelligent engineering using AI and test-driven development. I have a custom GPT I've used to help develop most of the course that's loaded with a bunch of context we'll look into. That's I'm going to talk about progression in, from a chat GPT to a custom GPT to an AI assistant to a full custom RAG model. I got a deck that I'll kind of go through, but kind of give use cases of each of those and how that's been helping in the use cases for those actually. Cool. Has anybody here actually been trying to use ChatGPT for these things to either a novel use or to try to generate content to do certain things and what have been the results that you found?
oh, I'm sorry, I was just talking and I was muted. Oh, you're asking us to talk about what we use ChatGPT for right now,
Yeah,
without your tooling?
yeah.
Yeah. So, um, I'm using it kind of all the time. I'm about to do an interview with a very interesting person, and I wanted to generate a ton of questions so I could pick from the questions that it came up with for me. Often I'm using it like the Cliff Notes. Like I find that when I try it, when I want to understand, how do people think about this political science thing? It doesn't give me a very clever answer, but if I say, like, who are the top five thinkers in this area, right? Then I'm like, oh, well, outline that book by person one. Well, tell me about chapter three. Now it's giving me stuff that's like
Yeah.
really like, wow. Now I'm learning stuff. I'm like, so yeah, I'm often using it to like introduce me to a field. And of course, I'm aware that, sometimes it just totally gets stuff wrong. Um, those are some of my big use cases. Jim, Lan, someone else jump in?
I have also been using it a lot for learning. So recently I have been learning more about system design and um, sorry. And then but I sometimes find that like as a sole source of learning, like it's not as sufficient because it really like to just like gloss over details that it will give high level points and it will give me a lot of high level points. But I find that if I reference a book and ask it specific questions, I get better results. It will help clarifying the questions I have about the book. So that's how I have mainly been using it.
Okay. One thing I found too is, and we'll show some of the prompts I had. If you have it like kind of make the prompt a little bit and say, ask relevant questions after your response, it'll give you that information about the book, and then it'll say something creative like, well, what do you think about blah 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 blah? And then you're like, oh, and then you start typing and responding to that, and you have like a whole conversation with it as opposed to a one-way conversation, it's a back and forth.
Actually, Justin, when are the really good times to say this kind of ask me some questions? Don't just do it. Ask me N questions. Like what are I've used that trick a little bit, but probably not as much as you. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. So I'm trying to pull up one of my things right now. So we'll go over this more inside the I'll share my screen now, and then we'll start. We can actually start getting into the presentation. Which screen is it? The screen right here. There we go. So like the prompt I have for my particular bot is in prompts, and then it says prompt. So it's pretty massive. So don't get me wrong. But then if you look down to the procedure here, right, it says, I'll begin our interaction by asking what interests you today. With a grounded understanding of past context, I will ask, and this is the bot saying, I will ask, not me, the user will ask, to gather more details from you to enhance my insight. I will provide examples where applicable to guide your response and to clarify. I will look inside my retrieval context to supplement my answers. After you share your thoughts, this is the user, on my suggestions, I will listen and adapt. Your feedback is critical. And then at this point, it's more about generating information, and then follow these guidelines. I will conclude my responses with a question per response. I will not use emojis because that's a tell for you're using ChatGPT. If you don't want to answer any more questions, this is kind of like a shortcut where I could say no more questions and it'll just spit out things. And then this is, again, trying to make sure it's always looking inside its retrieval context. So what I have found is that
Okay, I let
this
this
kind of,
go by me a little bit. So can you go through this a little slower and make sure we all understand
okay.
who's doing what? When do you use this? I'm a little distracted by hosty things. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So it can get confusing when you're writing these prompts. The prompt is in the first person, as in I as ChatGPT, the persona. You are the user, the person on the keyboard, right? So this prompt is in first person. Sometimes I've had mixed results doing either or, but you got to keep it consistent one way or the other. Either I is me or I is the GPT. You pick, and it stays the same throughout the whole prompt. But for this one, it's I is the GPT. So I will begin. So the GPT, our interaction by asking what interests you today. So the GPT is going to say, "Hey, what are you curious about?" If I don't, if I just say hello, then when when the user responds, like, "Oh, I want to talk about test-driven development," so the GPT now understands what we're talking about, and then we'll start asking pertinent questions to gather more detail. The GPT, and again, I will provide answers where applicable to guide your responses and clarify expectations, right? I will look inside my retrieval context. The GPT will look inside its vector store to grab things. After you, the user, share your thoughts and suggestions, I, the GPT, will adapt. Your feedback, the user, is crucial. It helps refine our insights and assure relevance. And then I, the GPT, will only proceed to the next step once we have enough information. Otherwise, I'll repeat the feedback loop. And I is the GPT. So this is like the prompt of my chatbot here. A lot of it is just kind of setting up a persona. So it basically has a personality. So that way the whole latent space of GPT, it talks as if it is, this is like kind of me, but a software engineer at RDM, founder of Devil Solutions, computer science degree. I was in the National Guard. I do these things. I am proficient in Python, Java, TypeScript, Swift. So I've created basically a persona of me, put it in here. So that way when it talks, like if I say, what's your favorite programming language? It will probably say Python, JavaScript, Java, one of these lists, rather than just picking something from the ether that's popular. And it goes through a little bit more tone and voice, like right here. Like we'll go through this a little bit more.
People who
But
don't want to ask questions verbally, make comments verbally, feel free to use the chat. I will probably voice your question for you, or a thought for
okay.
you. Okay, so do I understand properly that this file is being grabbed by a piece of code, maybe a Python program, that then sends it via an API to ChatGPT? Is that how it's being
Yeah,
used, or how is this file being used?
exactly. So if we look at this is ChatGPT's platform, so platform OpenAI.com, right? So if we look at this persona here is the same file that gets uploaded here.
Oh, so it doesn't sound like you had to use an API. It sounds like you went
You,
into this platform and you could paste it right in here. Is that right? Or
I,
what?
you can, but why would you? We're
Oh,
software
I'm sorry.
engineer nerds. Sorry, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No. So if you're rather than spending a lot of time trying to develop these things just through the API, it is helpful to be able to go through manually do it and like, all right, how can I do that thing without it? So that's where a lot of my initial exploration started was like just hitting create and be like, all right, I have this. Oh, I can turn on file search. I can upload things. What's this do? Blah, 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 blah. So like this is, oh, I can set the models. So a lot of this can be done manually, but what we're going to go through is some code that I have and assistants that I've set up that are all generated using Python code.
Marvelous. Oh, before we forget, if you want to put the repository into the chat, or does that make sense, or
Yeah, I got
whatever?
we can do that real quick. So there will be a couple, but this is a good one to start off with. I should probably close out my other tabs. I don't know what I have open on all the other places. Okay. So inside of chat, boop, there we go. So that's one of them. And we'll go through how that works. Are we ready to start diving in and doing some stuff? Or do we want to keep talking for a few minutes? Is everybody comfortable?
I think we're good.
Questions?
I think we does anybody have any questions they want to ask before we dive into more content?
Oh, why did
Good.
that
That
share
sounds
on
like
Lex?
we're gonna get started then. Yay.
I don't know. Why is PowerPoint not, how do I change the screen PowerPoint shares on?
I mean,
Is
we
that
are seeing
possible?
that. Oh,
Oh yeah, but my play is not on the right screen. Oh
oh,
dang. Uh okay, so
uh, that's interesting. Yeah, my
how do
laptop
I
always gets the um. I love it.
yes. That's just like slideshow tab.
This is
Okay.
the eating your own dog food. Yay.
Uh-huh. Set up slideshow box for multiple monitors. Set up slideshow. Okay, then what did it say? Display slideshow on. Where is display slideshow? Monitors. Oh, which monitor is the I don't know which one is two, but let's try
Pick
that real quick. Maybe
something and
that.
we'll see if
Yeah,
it'll
I was just
tell us
about
if
to
it.
say. Okay, it's not two. That is the one because I have a laptop, a big computer, and then a vertical screen also. So
Doesn't everyone?
yeah, I
You just
my multiple
You're not
eyes.
the only cool kid on the block. No, I
There we
only have
go.
two.
Beautiful. Okay,
Nice.
so that is much better. All right, so let me move some things around. All right, so this is harnessing OpenAI assistance for dynamic content generation, and that's what we were just talking about. The idea is that we want to create like basically custom responses from our GPTs that match what we are doing, our personality. We don't want to sound like a robot. We want it to be authentic enough, but I don't want to have to write out every the in an article that I have. So we went over my experience a little bit. Like I said, I'm from right now, Artium is my current employer. They are fantastic. I highly recommend them. If you need any premium software consulting done, you can get individuals like me and other fantastic people. I have also been an independent contractor for a little bit. I had a company, I called it Devil Solution, it was DV3L, DEV3L, kind of like developer. It was cute. When COVID hit, it turns out it's hard to be independent and get new clients and contracts. So fortunate enough to join with Artium. So I did that for about 3 years. Like I said, Artium has really doubled down on making sure our engineers are up to speed on AI technologies. When we go in between projects, we call it the beach. There's usually some kind of like almost like hypothesis and things that we're running. We've done things like basically most of what I know here is rooted from some of those things. Um, yeah. So the agenda for today, I already said hi. We're going to talk about like different levels of utilization for RAG systems, right? So this is all RAG essentially, right? Retrieval augmented generation. Although OpenAI obfuscates a lot of that away from us. We'll dive deep into the APIs and do some practical examples. And then we'll do some key concepts, best practices. And then I have basically 3 projects that we're going to work through as we go through. So these are kind of like the levels that I'm saying right now. Like ChatGPT, right? Which is what we had when I was like, hey, how do I do this thing? Fantastic for general questions. Or if I was to say like, uh, I want to positively respond to a recruiter message. Can you help me out? Here is the message. And then we'll go to LinkedIn real quick and we'll pick some fortunate individual who has messaged me recently. Oh, look, Paige Mickelson. Sorry, you are on the code borging meetup right now, but we will copy this and I will paste. Okay. Certainly. Here's a positive professional response. Thank you for reaching out with me. I hope you're having great as well. Health sounds fantastic. I am particularly drawn to the innovative work and autonomy offered within the development teams. The tech stack you mentioned aligns well with my skills. It's making that up. I would love to schedule a confidential chat with you. Okay, so that's pretty good. If we went to like where I have platform OpenAI and I go to, this would be like just a quick demo of the same thing. So I have my Jasper Beall, which is a cute play on Justin Beall. So this has all my stuff. We will look at that here in a little bit. But if I took the same exact prompt, right, and then I take the message that I copied, and then I run this, hey, hi, thank you for reaching out and considering me for the Python full stack roles. And your message came at a great time as I've been contemplating new opportunities that align with my experience and professional goals. The role you get is described as particularly the aspect working well-funded scale startup health company prioritizes high quality software is intriguing. My substantial experience in Python, coupled with my proficiency in AWS and front-end technologies like React, fits well with the stacks your client utilizes. Additionally, my background includes working with frameworks like Flask and Fast API, which align seamlessly with the requirements. I would be very interested, right? So it was pretty good over here, but it made that up. The tech stack aligns well with it just assumed so, right? This one did not assume. So what I can also do is if I said, hey, can you look inside your retrieval context and provide citations where you found that information? See how it says running retrieval? And as it goes through, it's saying 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, 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 pulling things out of my blogs. It takes a little bit longer because it's actually doing like a little bit RAG search and it slows down the streaming experience. But this is actually, if we open AI, it's not as easy to do through the playground right here. We'll actually run things on the command line here in a little bit to see how it's a little different. But these citations come back with like little annotations that OpenAI allows you to actually go to that file and it'll show you where it physically pulled that information from.
So it's essentially footnoting. How do you use these footnotes? Like if it's getting something wrong, you might want to tell it, don't use this old resume from over here. It's out of date kind of thing. Or like, what do you use this footnoting capability for?
So a lot of fears in the, I would say, LLM space stem from it just making stuff up and hallucinating, as they call it, right? What you're doing with this is it is actually, you can go back and verify where it has actually pulled the information from. So it's not hallucinating. It is actually doing some stuff. And
Okay,
I
so
don't know
this helps
why.
you when you're talking about someone who isn't you and you don't know all the facts to
Yeah,
know that the footnotes help you know that it's not hallucinating on you.
correct. Or if you
Cool.
like, if you had like an actual product you were making up and you want to make sure, and we'll go with this with if we have time for the treasure chat that I have. Um, the footnotes help make sure that the things it's listing are real. It's just not making up fake products, right? Because it's very good at that and it's tricky sometimes. And I'll show you how. I got something called repeat tests that'll do that. So it went through and added a bunch of stuff here, right? It takes it. I don't know why it took so long through the chat interface. It's not normally that long, but uh, I don't think I can actually get to the citation here. I'd have to do it through the command line. But I haven't needed an actual chat client. I haven't built a React or anything yet because this plus the command line works well enough for my use cases and my technical competency. If I was to create something for a uh, non-technical person, I'd spin up a UI, and that's what we did for this ticket discovery thing that we did at Artium. So starting again.
Very
Oh, I
cool.
don't. I want to start from that.
Justin,
Yeah,
hi, Mark Watson. Yeah, for the hallucination, something I've just been playing with for a couple months is to, pardon my parrot,
yeah,
is
fine.
to basically use the footnotes when you're working in Python code. And thank you. Let me have. My wife is hauling the parrot away, sorry, is to use the footnotes and to go fetch just the text from websites and then make another pass and say, this is my source material. Another LLM gave me this results. Critique that and eliminate anything that is not in the source material. And you're basically round tripping, so it takes a little bit more time. But if you're writing Python code anyway, it's not that tough to do.
Yeah. So again, I'm not allowed to say client names. I don't think. But what we did something similar. We set up for this ticket company with the event discovery. We set up a chat. And then this is the full RAG model. So it used chat completions, not the assistants, but it would use a tool call from OpenAI chat completions. That chat completion would then go make a vector call in a Pinecone database, which then we would have everything, just the real results. And then we would feed that back into ChatGPT, say, hey, analyze these things. It would produce it. And then that's what we would, it was almost like a 4 to 5 step maneuver to get just the real data. And that's how I'd recommend for like an actual production system. I would probably shy away from OpenAI for like anything other than a prototype or something that's non-critical, because even with all this stuff set up, it still can sometimes it can sometimes catch you off guard because it's a black box.
Explain about
Cool.
vector and pinecone, unless that's taking you too far afield.
So Pinecone DB is a vector database as a service is all. So basically you take I think we talked about this in one of the meetings, but you take your text, you turn it into a bunch of numbers and you put it in the database and then they provide APIs to query that effectively and host it and all that stuff. So we'll get into vectors a little bit more here in a minute. That was
Cool.
a little bit further along. Okay. And then we also have custom GPTs, which are pretty cool. A custom GPT they are even far less reliable than OpenAI assistants. They sometimes go for, it almost looks like they try to shortcut things, right? So we'll use this guy as this is kind of what I've been working with Jelias on if he was still here. And I know John Stahl was at one point, but like I say, like right here, how should I start TDD for the FizzBuzz problem? Click on it. And then starting TV, write the first test, create FizzBuzz. Now, this course right now is planned to be in C sharp. So it knows to do things in C sharp. It knows that we're using X unit. It tries to follow TDD stuff that are going on. Doesn't give the whole answer. Every now and then, though, it just forgets and just spits out a lot more. So I've had variable results, but we'll go through a little bit more on those too. Okay. And then full custom RAG model, that's what we've been talking about. So this is kind of like how I imagine using ChatGPT. This is a graphics diagram, which I generated with ChatGPT, by the way. Fun fact. Um, so you have this user, and then basically through the interaction of the interface, you have a model you select. So if we look over here and we say ChatGPT, you have a model you select, and then that goes into a thread, which is a managed conversation. You can upload things to it. So if I pick from my computer and I just do like, let's see, oh, I probably could actually even take, if I go to, where is it at? Beach, no, it's about bid files. Here's my actual resume in text form. I say, what do you think about my resume? Okay. So it does some things, right? Okay, it's telling me I should add some more stuff. But pretty good. Um, so the uploads, when ChatGPT, you actually upload a file, it vectorizes it, which is it turns it into a series of arrays of numbers. It chunks the file into certain amount, and it knows how to search and parse that. If you do that with an image, if you do that with text, PDF, pick your platform, it turns everything into series of numbers and puts those into a vector database and can query and do things on it. Although when you're doing a picture, I'm sure it's doing a little bit more, such as running some kind of machine learning models on it in the background to say, hey, this is a picture of a cat, so on and so forth. So you have this single thread. It's fantastic, but the issue is that it is, if you wanted to share this with anybody else or you wanted to do it again, I have to create a brand new thread. I can share such that people can see a read-only version of it, but there's no way to say, hey, Eric, hey, check out this this thing I made. I would have to say, hey, enter this command, upload this file, and go from there. So it's not shareable. Right. And it's the whole space of ChatGPT. So like even to do like a prompt, I'd have to enter the prompt every time. You could get some of the same results, but it's not, again, your control is very limited. So then we have custom GPTs, which are essentially the same thing, but you have a little bit more control and they're shareable. So the user, you can upload multiple files, you have a configuration prompt. It has a vector database where it takes all those files and does some stuff, but then I can share that with people. So, but what I have found is that even though I say, hey, always look in your vector database, always look in your retrieval count, always, it's still every now and then it's like, yeah, I just went for the shortest answer. And that's how the pretty much how the algorithms work. They try to find the highest probability, least effort way of getting your answer. Right.
So with the custom GPTs that I understand that you're not using APIs when you make the custom GPTs, those are things you're doing using a user interface?
Yeah, I have not found a way to do them through an API, but I'll give
So you're
shout out.
basically having a conversation where you're uploading files and say, and it's got its own vector database. So when doing the custom GPTs, you don't need to use a separate vector database. It's kind of
No, it's anytime you upload. Go ahead. Anytime you upload files to ChatGPT, it's basically creating a little vector store under the scenes.
right. Okay.
Yeah,
Mark,
Eric, it's not fine tuning. It's not creating a new model using LoRa or some technique like that. It's basically using it as context text, I believe. I tried making one of these where I input maybe 15 pages of text, sayings of the Buddha and Paramahansa Yogananda, and call it like a spiritual advisor. And it really did a very good job. It really caught the flavor of it. I'm not convinced that it's very practical. I mean, if you wanted to ingest all of your company's documentation, like to serve up to end users or something, you'd really want to like take a smaller model like Mistral 7 or maybe the smaller Llama 3 model and go through fine tuning. And there's plenty of tutorials on the web show you how to do that.
Yeah,
Oh, Mark,
absolutely.
maybe in a future week you'd be interested in giving a talk where we talk
Oh, sure.
about the limits of fine tuning versus
Yeah.
what you can do with prompt engineering versus. Please, I'll stick some information in the chat. I would love to talk about having that conversation. Justin?
Good. Good.
Great. And this is the general prompt structure that I have for almost everything. I say, hey, you'll do some persona, right? I give it a little bit of description, like this is you offer advice on software engineering. This is do not give the whole solution. That's what I was talking about. Hey, when I do TDD and FizzBuzz, every now and then it just ignores that, generates the whole thing. Follow the procedure below, which is very similar to the other one we have. Assimilate the persona, which is where is it at? This whole thing. So I just had I play around and have give my bots persona so they have a tone of voice and direction, and follow the tone and voice guidelines when communicating. So like right here, this is the procedure. It's very similar. Provide examples. Your feedback is critical. Follow code examples and kata guidelines. So when people are asking for things, try to follow these guidelines too. If a student asks about language feature, assume .NET 8.0. They'll be using Visual Studio Code. And in addition, I've been also using this bot to help develop the course. So if I wanted to, let's look at Trello real quick. Ignore. So this is the whole board for the course that we've been working on. If I took this custom GPT real quick and I said, hey there, can you tell me what things are in progress and what still needs to be done? We'll see if it lies this time. So you're searching my knowledge. Give you a clear picture. Oh, Siri's trying to help out. Course development, refactoring, TDD practices. Yeah, so it is taking the whole context of the board and putting that in there. So that's basically all these files that are uploaded. I shared the custom GPT repo that I've been using with this. There is some secret sauce that you will not find in there that is specific to LeanDog, but it has all these files and knows about things. So one thing that I have set up in that repo, and we'll get fancier in a little bit, I have a Trello integration file. So if I say run Trello integration, what it's going to do is it's going to go out to this board in Python. And if we have time, we'll go over this code too. It's going to suck everything in, put everything in a markdown format because ChatGPT loves markdown based upon the lists and all of that stuff. And it is going to produce a file. We'll see how much time we have for this. But it is going to produce a file that I can download. And then it looks like right here. And then I upload that to the bot. So it knows everything about the Trello board too. But that's all manual. And it's kind of challenging, right? But it gives a lot of things, right? And I can actually right now, I could say share. Anyone can access the link. So let's copy the link and we can share that. So if you want to take a
Okay,
peek,
so this
that
is
is
still
there.
using a custom GPT. And how
Correct.
did you share the Trello board with it?
Oh, that's the magic. So I have a repository that is set up alongside of this. And then I have a GitHub action. And we'll talk about data extraction here a little bit for these things. With this run integration, so it actually has a Trello markdown text. And what this does is, and that's in this repository that I linked, if you go into this bad boy, Trello extract, there is a bunch of code here that basically pulls everything from Trello. And if we get far enough along in the talk today, I have a fancier version of this that we'll go through that is for a OpenAI assistant that does similar, whose main job is just to be a product owner.
Cool.
But yeah, data extraction, management, all that stuff, that's a challenge for these things. I have a question.
Oh, sorry. I was still trying to understand that example. So I understand with the script that you write in Python, you can download the travel board information. But
You might want to
it's
deal
just
with your microphone position, Len.
oh,
Not super easy to hear you. Could you start again?
you can use that in that.
Nope, that just got worse.
You try again, Lan, or you can type in chat too. I got the chat over here on my fancy monitor. Okay, we'll come at Lan. If you have a question, I think you were asking about the Trello itself. It's basically trying to get everything into a markdown format. Oh yeah, yes, exactly. Right. For this, because custom GPTs, so the question Lan asked is, how do you feed the Trello board into the custom GPT? Is it just a manual process? And the answer for this is yes. So if I go over back to what we just looked at and we say actions, this Trello board integration, this is the newest updated version. Right here, here's the two. I would take this file, and I've already done this recently, but then I would come back to my GPT, which is over here. And I think it is, there's a T in here somewhere. Yeah, right here. This file is it. Well, we could do it right now, right? So we take that, and I normally name it the same thing so it's easier to see. And I got a bunch of pictures, but it's this Trello too. Click it. And you can see it's a little spinning over here. And now it's in there. And then I would see it's spinning around updating, and then I update. So what I've noticed in this interface, I don't know if you see everything's kind of prefixed with numbers. It's hard to keep track of things because the way ChatGPT cuts all off. So when I actually am updating things for this particular project, I come into my custom GPTs for my Lean Dog AI, and then I look at assets. I have everything kind of like C0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all these things. So that way I can easily, sometimes it'll error out on a file. That way I can easily prefix and tell what they are. But yeah, that's a manual process. I have, we'll get to a fancy bot that actually runs the Trello board, copies that file into a data directory, then builds the GPT using that new Trello extract too, if we have time. So then we get into the meat
This
of
is
this.
a good time to talk at all about, when should we be concerned that we're handing an LLM so much content that you're gonna, kind of blow the context and that it won't be able to deal with it usefully.
Fantastic question.
Yeah.
If we look at the Docs API reference, I'm looking for they used to have what is new, but like the vector stores here, I actually want the Docs, not this. If we look at the size of files, where's that file search? So file search, somewhere in here, it is like, here, vector stores. Okay, can hold up to 10,000 files, right? And they have to be of a certain size, like the maximum file size is 512 megabytes or 5 million tokens per file. So that is 10,000 times how many tokens, which is 5 million. Once you get over, what is that, 50 billion, 50 million? I do my math right? I don't know. It's a lot of zeros on there. And a token is about 4 characters, right? So it basically, again, that's the beauty of vector storage. You can get extremely large amounts of data, and they're extremely efficient and fast to retrieve. But so
And
we
the
have this vector.
LLMs can keep that stuff in mind.
It's
Entire novels,
Some
essentially.
of it, right? Um, I think GPT-4o has does it have a megabyte, a million tokens.
so
Uh,
it's
so that
128,000
oh,
tokens is the current.
120,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually do most of my stuff with local LLMs running a llama that have like 32,000 or 16,000 tokens. And that's really not such a problem because usually you, by querying the vector store, you get appropriate chunks and you basically stop filling in your context when you start getting near what the maximum context size is for a model. So again, that's a little bit of code. Um, and I think it's actually pretty good uh, uh, practice to, as Justin was saying, you use the web UI to really understand how to do prompts and whatnot. But if people are comfortable with Python coding, it's really good to get in the habit of start writing little bits of code to do all of this. Um, and also, um, it's not it's not really a waste of time to go through and really understand what embeddings do for you. I mean, embeddings were a very big thing 7 or 8 years ago. Even before transformers became popular, where we start out by doing like sentence embeddings uh, or word embeddings, and it's sort of the classic example is if you have embeddings for all English words and you find, if you have a vector space, say it's 1,000 dimensions, and you have a vector point that represents man and another one for woman, and then you can go, what's the relationship between man to king? And that's going to be a little vector offset. And you can take that offset from man to king, put over to woman, and you end up very close to queen. And 7 or 8, 9 years ago, that was like people were going nuts over that. And now what we're seeing is the practical application where you're embedding not just a set words or sentences, but you're embedding entire documents or chunks of documents. And so when you take a document chunk of maybe 1,000 characters and create an embedding, and OpenAI embedding spaces was it 1,356, I think, uh, floating point numbers. So that represents a point in a vector space. Uh, that's why when you query and you create a vector representation of it, you go into that vector space, you're going to automatically sort of be taken to all the document chunks that are, are potentially relevant to it. So it's like a fast way to do lookup. And so anyway, sorry for the sidetrack there. But
No, absolutely.
it's really good to kind of play around and all of these you can call OpenAI, or if you're using a llama, you can always access a model and its embedding model. So you can take text and you can look at the floating point numbers. And if you want to do it by hand, you can multiply two vector embeddings together, cosine product basically. And it's not a bad idea to actually code that up, just so you kind of get a warm fuzzy on how it works. And now I'm going to.
That's
Awesome,
how.
Mark. You see that I gave you my Calendly link. Please make an appointment to talk to me. Keep going, Justin.
Yeah, that's how PG vector and things work. It actually does the cosine similarity and some of the things. OpenAI, when you're doing their vector, you have zero control of that. And that's what I'm trying to get at. Least control to more control. And as Mark was saying, if you look at the default embedding vectors of OpenAI for text embedding small, it creates a array of 1536 magical numbers that it knows how to do math on. That is a gross simplification of it, but that embedding model has that sentiment analysis that Mark was talking about, such that king and man are in a closer space as opposed to dog and waffle, maybe. I don't know. Right? Maybe waffle is close and maybe dog because man has a dog and eats waffle. I don't know. But it's basically it's so efficient because it's just doing math, and that's where the GPUs and a lot of this coming off. Like vector math is very efficient and can be parallelized, right? So, okay. And last thing real quick. So we were talking about it. This is I'll sign this. I'm glad I found it because this is a good reference for how many 128 context window K tokens, right? So it's saying 32,000 tokens times 4 is about 128. So this is a 32K context window. Keep in mind now we're up to like 128,000. So you times this by 4. So is that many times 4? And you say, well, is 500 words per page, double spaced, right? So assuming on 5 letters, so about 50 pages is about 32K context window. So a 128K context window is going to be about 200 pages of a book is what you can put into your content. And normally you don't hit that because when you're doing the vector search and all that stuff, it's not going to go through that far. Assistance, the actual, which we'll get into, the way they manage threads kind of compresses those threads and does some stuff and tries to take care of that sliding context window for you. So there's a lot of cool things that go on here. This is how I think I imagine OpenAI assistants. So you have the user, which interacts with an API, right? So there's the whole idea of creating and interacting with the assistant, which is the file uploads. You can have something called tool calls, which we'll try to hit. The configuration, which is like the prompt and the temperature, and there's a bunch of other things you can. I usually just pick the defaults, but if you, for example, like temperature, if you want to have very consistently the same answers, you have a higher temperature, I believe, and that's almost like the variability of the prompt. I'm sorry, the responses. So if we go into assistance here again, and we just said, we'll just look at this bad boy. But like right here, we have temperature. And I thought they had controls the randomness, right? So if I wanted to say, hey, don't be random at all, or be very random. Top P I haven't really played with, but yeah. So there's all these things you can control in here. And then you can use all these, build up the thing, and we'll walk through this to create the assistant. Once you have the assistant, you can actually use an API to start a thread, associate that assistance with it, and start a whole conversation. So you're basically taking what we did on our chat GPT over here, and instead of saying, hey, give me the general chat GPT, you're actually saying, hey, load my custom thing. And this is where the fun begins, because this is great for prototyping. This is great for actual products. Like I said, I do think that if you were going to like try to scale it, I would go into like a full RAG model, which is like starting to get a lot more fancy. And I think we're going to skip for time because I have like 45 minutes left before I got to go. Right? Any questions on this before we go? Lot of arrows here pointing to OpenAI Assistant, basically, and then to Thread. And then you could share these things too. This is what you would like. If I built a chat UI in React, and then I had an API behind it, I could actually have that API talk to my bot and then feed the responses in and out. I could do fancy things, as Mark was saying. I could run a smaller LLM inside my API to verify responses and correctness and things of that nature. This opens up the world to actually being able to do any kind of product using AI. And again, this is kind of how I imagine the that should have said this should have been for the full the title here is wrong. But basically at this point you would have an LLM which does a tool call, hits a custom code. And in this case, when if you had like a custom database with a PostgreSQL PG vector, Pinecone, or pick your other service, you would actually have to embed the things yourself. You'd pick the model, you pick the chunking size, you pick that level of fine detail and control can go a long way for the ticket service and event discovery that I mentioned. We did maybe a half a dozen experiments of a CSV export that they gave us in order to find the best way to vectorize the data so that way natural language, when the customer was like, I want to see a cozy event with Paw Patrol next weekend in LA, it would go through and pull that information correctly. We ended up doing a little bit of, we had some tags, and then we actually had the LLM write a short couple sentence summary of it. And then we also, on top of that, we did some metadata filtering. Like, so it can get real complex, but that's the only way to get like a product such that your chat doesn't sell a car to somebody for $1 sort of situation, right? I don't know if anybody's seen that before. So, all right. So this is our knowledge bot. We kind of quickly demoed it real quick. I have a link that I shared in, let's go back to this. I have a link that I shared that was called Insight Genie. This is I would say a more open version of the one that I will have. So I actually have one that I call Knowledge Bot. It has a lot more data and things that I didn't want to make public. So basically all it is just a repo. So if we look inside of here, let's close everything out. There we go. Let's close everything. And we can start off with just the main thread. Should I make this bigger for people? Is that a little better? Good. Okay, so this is just in Python. It's a main program. So the first thing that it does, it tries to export the data. So right here, export data. So I have a directory here that has various forms of data. And there's a lot there. So we'll go through kind of how I do that. Thing of books, files, LinkedIn posts, Twitter stuff, speaker engagements I've done, and some other things. So it takes all of that data and basically translates it into a shape that ChatGPT can handle. For the most part, it's either Markdown or JSON is what I figured works the best. And even when it's Markdown, you want it to be a text file, not an MD file, because for some reason that makes the world of difference. Although it can handle Markdown, it seems to be able to parse text files very quickly, and I get more reliable results. So we'll go through the data here in a second. So we make an OpenAI client, which at this point is just, here's the actual OpenAI library. So I've pip installed through the requirements here, OpenAI. So I'm just saying, hey, build me a new OpenAI client. And typically I like to wrap the things that I'm doing in a API around like custom things. So if I wanted to switch to like Gemini, or I wanted to use an open source model, most of these things we could keep the same interface at the client level and swap out details on the end. So, but basically, mostly it's just I create a client, pass it in, and then I have a service that actually takes in that client. So it's just injected. And this is where a lot of the magic happens, is that it has the assistant name here. So if we see that assistant name and we go back to got too many windows open again. I want to get to my platform. So let's just go here. So you give it an assistant name right here. So this is the assistant name. Oh, come on. Jasper Beall Knowledge Bot. So right there. It has an assistant description, right? Which is, if we look at the assistant, I think that's just on the API. I thought there's somewhere you can see it, but it's a description when you list them. And then what we do is we try to get an assistant or find an assistant, and I'll try to walk through. I have some things right here that say, hey, if I have a Boolean flag set to true, just wipe it and start from scratch. right? And the delete assistant just goes through the API, grabs all the files associated with it, the vector stores associated with it, and the assistant. And I tend to do that by, if we look at the storage, I prefix all the information. This is for a different one, but I tend to give my files, I got a lot of them here, they're unrelated to this. So setting things up. Come on, eventually we'll get to some stuff. There should be, there we go. So like knowledge bot, LinkedIn, JSON, speaker, JSON, all these things, JSON.text. So that way, all my files, my vector stores, and my assistants are either prefixed so I can easily clean up, because although it's not, unless you have a large amount of data, vector stores are going to cost money on it's either a daily or weekly basis or something like that based upon the size. So having it's kind of like an AWS resource. Having an easy way to down everything is important. So then I get the assistant by the ID. So what we do is, and this is where the magic starts happening. So I want to try to find an existing client or existing assistant. All it does is say, hey, give me all of the OpenAI assistants you know about. So it's essentially going over here, list them all. All right, so for each one in there, find the assistant with the name Jasper Beall Knowledge Bot. So it's picking this bad boy right here. Just looping through all the lists. There might be a fancier way to do this, but just find the existent or the assistant. Now, let's go back. If that assistant does not exist, create the assistant. And this is where we start getting into a little bit of things. So it'll say creating new assistant, and it gets the prompt, which this is a pro tip. Store your prompt as like a markdown file or something in your code. So if you have like a prompt engineer or somebody who is not as technical, they can go either into the source code or something like that and just mess with the markdown file directly, as opposed to trying to go into your code where you have a giant string. Markdown files, I'm assuming a slight amount of technical capability of like a prompt engineer. But if I was able to tell someone, hey, look at this file, right? It's bolded, it's fancy, right? They could come into here. If they wanted to create a branch, they could do everything without actually signing into or using a code editor, update things directly, create a merge request, everything without actually having to get into the code base and pull everything down. So keeping your prompt separate. So I say, hey, where were we at? Oh no, too far. We were like, hey, create assistant, get my prompt. And all that does, literally, it says, hey, grab that file, read it in, stick a date time on it, because sometimes ChatGPT forgets what day it is. If you go to ChatGPT and ask it what day it is, it knows. The OpenAI assistants, I think ChatGPT does some magic to wrap things around, and the assistant will think it's like somewhere in October. Just an FYI. So I always put the current date in there. So it's just basically taking that file, replacing that current date, and then returning it. So now once that is done, we have a, hey, create assistant or get vector store IDs, which follows a similar process. Find the vector store by this prefix. So if we go back into here and we say vector stores, I don't know, they're a little slow for some reason. Take your time. Nah, while that's loading. But find it by this, grab all of them, find the one that starts with this prefix. Same thing. Otherwise, we're going to create a vector store. So then I have the same kind of logic with creating the file. So it's almost like you need your files before you can do a vector store, and you need your vector store before you can create an assistant. So it's almost like this tunnel here. So now create file IDs. We have the same process. Either list all the files and find the ones that start with the prefix, or create new files. And then when I create new files, all I'm doing is this get file paths. I'm looking in this bin directory. Here's all my data. It's basically walking through this bin directory and just uploading every single file that gets put in here. And I have this not checked into source, so that way I can blow it away. And then next time I run it, it'll recreate those files based upon any updates I've done to my actual data files. And this could be, you could be doing this reading from a database, from an API, all of that stuff. But taking your files, transforming them into a shape that ChatGPT likes, then iterating through and uploading all the files one at a time. And yeah, right here, we can see there's a knowledge bot vector store. So create all the files. And we're at the create a vector store. So we've created the files. Now we're going to create a vector store, which all of these are just open API commands. And you could, if you're curious, you can follow in the code. There's examples for each of these. It creates the file. I'm sorry, the vector store with the name and the list of file IDs that came back from OpenAI. So like whenever I have a file here, you know, it has a file ID. So it's just saying vector store, add all these file IDs to it, and it handles the magic. It does the chunking, the vectorization, all of the things that Mark and I talked about automatically under the hood. And it creates this nice little vector store for you. This is just a wait because it takes a couple seconds to do it. So it just goes through and loops through the vector store, trying to make sure it's there. And then finally, with the create assistant, we'd come into here. And this, again, OpenAI.create, you give it the name, the instructions, which are, let's go back real quick, which is that prompt. So a name, the prompt, the vector store IDs, it expects an array, always have one. You could add many to it. And a list of tools, which the tools for this particular guy is just right here, file search. That's as if we go over here and I just check this box. That's all. That's the JSON way that's set up. And says create, and the magic happens. That was pretty nerdy and quick. Does anybody have any questions? And I'll show what it looks like just going through real quick. So if I just say true, like I said, maybe we'll talk about data here at some point too. I think that's on my slide deck. But if we look, I don't have that bin directory anymore. I have all my stuff over here. If I say Python, oh, I have hatch in here. Hatch run chat. You can see it went through, it recreated these files. So it has writing, doing some stuff, creating things, doing stuff. It listed the assistant. It actually deleted the assistant. So if I went over here and reloaded, yeah, no assistant found anymore. So the one I had selected before, he is gone. And it will go through and regenerate everything. And we'll let that run for a second because it takes a little bit of time, and we can look over here. Any questions on that before we get into maybe some actual? Yes, Jim.
Yeah, I wonder about the RAG, when you're uploading those files. Do you know what the chunk size is of what it's going to be retrieving them into, or does it use separators in the files to break them into pieces? Is there any way to set those parameters?
Yes. I don't normally, I just let the magic happen. But when you upload a file, where's it at? Oh, okay, so not through here. When I upload a file to a vector store, I'll kind of show real quick. Add files. Oh, come on. That's not what I wanted. So let's just pick a random file to put in there. There's advanced options, chunk size, chunk overlap, token. So when you actually create the vector store, there is some control over it, but for the most part, no. How it's breaking things down, is it doing by like major headers? Is it doing by, you don't have as much control. And that's kind of like, if you, like for a real production application, I would do something like get a prototype up and running, an OpenAI assistant, find some kind of valid product or use case, and then I'd say, hey, we need to write this thing using like a true like customized model. unless, unless that is fine. But normally those questions you're asking are the details that's going to differentiate your product. Is that good?
Thank you.
Okay. And then let's see where it's at. So we look real quick. It actually deleted all the files. It has, I think it deleted the vector store. Now it's creating the new assistant. It'll upload files, and while that's running, we can talk more about this. We can go through, oh, too far. We can go through an actual example when it's back up again. Data preparation is something interesting. ChatGPT and most LLMs love Markdown. So what I tend to do for most of these things is like, I actually used to have my resume, where's files? I used to have my resume as a PDF, and it turns out ChatGPT just handles it much better as Markdown. But let's say you have a PDF. So let's go to my file system. And I think over here, I have a resume as a PDF. If I went to chat, openai.com, and say, hey, can you help me by formatting this text as Markdown? It is my resume. And then we go over here, we open it up, and we can see right here, it's in a PDF. Copy, pasta. It'll come through, and it actually, here's your formatted Markdown.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I've been going through the process of converting it to Word using some website and using Pandoc to take the Word and make it into Markdown. This is nice.
Yeah, and I actually, even here, I said, can you write this as Markdown? I think that was probably even unnecessary. I probably could have just said, can you format this? Because then it has the little copy button that actually copies it in Markdown. So that was probably a little bit of extra unnecessary. But let's say also you have like a slide deck, right? I don't know if you guys know, if you go to Google Slides and you say sign in, and let's pick something from my own personal principles of code. That other one was something my son did. But this is a a keynote that I had given at CodeMash 2 years ago. I uploaded it as a Google Slide, and then Google Slides, you can say, download text, plain text, principal code text. And this actually includes all of your speaker notes and things in there, right? So then we'll do the same thing. We say chat GPT, and I say, can you format this PowerPoint presentation text that I have? Same thing. Sometimes it'll say it's too long of context. You have to like split it up, but there's my PowerPoint in a presentation or in a format that ChatGPT can just take right in.
Yeah, Justin, I think you can just use the little paper clip to the left of the message field, right? And I think I know it'll handle PDFs. I think it'll handle PowerPoint, Microsoft Word. I think internally it just probably is using something like Pandoc.
I haven't tried that before. If I tried the same thing and I said, let me try, go back to here, and I say, can you take this file and make it text and format it for me?
And there it goes.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. And also, like, if you're in a meeting and you take a picture with your phone of a whiteboard, it's really nice to use a paper clip to import the picture and also you want to be able to reference it.
Nice. Okay. I didn't know how fancy it got with there. So that's a
And
shortcut.
then you're saying you can take the entire whiteboard and get it back as Markdown?
Oh no, well, no, but you can take a picture of something and use the paper
Give me all the
put
text.
picture in, because starting with GPT-4o, everything is multimodal and it handles images, text, and audio data, right? Um, so you can put in a recording of somebody's voice, I think. They've really made it. I'm not a real fan of OpenAI, but they've done a really nice job of making it into a nice product.
Yeah, OpenAI is
Yeah.
just the easiest one to work with, is what I
It
found. I
is.
mean, like it has almost all the bells and whistles. I've played with Claude, I've played with Gemini and the APIs, and they are pretty cool, but it seems like OpenAI is just a step ahead of them on all the niceties.
It really is. I've gotten really used to using Grok, GRO Q, which it runs on um, it's one of Chamath Palihapiti's startups. They have
Yep.
special hardware just for inference, and you can run like really good models like the large Llama 3, and I think you get inference like maybe 30 or 40, 50 times faster than calling the OpenAI APIs.
Yeah.
So if you're working in Python and you can get away with not using all of OpenAI's bells and whistles, you can make things run super fast. Of course, and Grok is not charging right now, um, but when they do, it'll be a lot cheaper. I mean, they can run models way cheaper than OpenAI can right now.
Yeah. And I would, if you can get a smaller model running in your API to do some extra stuff, keep that contained and then go to like a frontier model just as needed. I think that is a good pattern. Um, so our bot completely uploaded. It did not listen to my not showing emojis in here. Sometimes it does not, but it says, "Can you help me with writing a post about test-driven development?" Uh, in the dynamic world, that looks like it's a little bit marketing. So what I'd say is, it seems like this has some sensational marketing speech in it. Can you be a bit more direct with a hook that gets readers' attention? In addition, you are not supposed to have emojis. Um, is there anything specific from your contact that you would add? Can this be a LinkedIn post? Question mark. Oh, I hit Control Enter. So it's running, and I have like little things here. This is like basically it's a shortcut around to get to. If we reload, should be back. So we see our knowledge bot is back. We have our vector store with all of our files in it, our prompt. We go to playground. It's literally the same thing as going through this. Well, not literally, but what happens is sometimes it's hard to continue a thread. We can see right here. This was talking about the recruiter message. I would have thought that it would have put the why test driven development matters, but that is okay. Okay, I don't know where that particular thread is. That's curious. But what I would do is I would take this right here. I would then go to LinkedIn. And then usually I kind of review it, right? So I say, let's do a post, paste, and then kind of go through it. Why test-driven development matters. I don't like this. So maintaining high quality in today's fast-paced world. I have Grammarly, so whatever Grammarly tells me about, I typically just accept. What is TDD? I think I just removed some of the stars here. I could probably have pasted this into Sublime Text or something first just to clean up the stars. Benefits of TDD. Okay, early bug detection. That looks fancy. Enhanced design. I like that because we are able to refactor and change things a lot more quickly. My
You're pulling out the
experience,
bolding because
LinkedIn doesn't do that. That's all. So I've been meaning to write something that strips out the markdown through the terminal, but I haven't needed to yet.
Oh, I see. You're saying that this is a
Yeah,
post for LinkedIn. LinkedIn doesn't yet accept Markdown, so you're turning the
correct.
Markdown into
Just plain
yeah,
text.
yeah.
So I'll kind of show real quick how, like, so right here in grain. So let's just do this real quick. So I come over here and then I typically, yeah, let's make everything straight. Yeah, thanks for comma helps. Okay, thank you. Integrate it. Yeah, make it more clear. Would you be ready? Yeah, cool. Let's talk about how TDD can make an effect. Okay, this looks good. All right, so then I would review it because I don't like to blindly post why test-driven development matters. Meaning high quality code is more critical than ever in today's fast-paced software development landscape. That sounds a little bit marketing to me. If we weren't, I'd probably take another stab at trying to get that out of it. Test-driven development offers a disciplined approach that can significantly enhance code quality and developer productivity. What is TDD? The TDD, but just a little bit more formatting. Test-driven iterative software development process that emphasizes writing tests before actual code. Red, green, refactor. That looks good. Benefits of TDD. I agree with code quality, more maintainable code. Writing, yes, that's only past early bug detection. Yeah, that's true. So if I make a change and it's going to enhance design, yeah, usually testable code is good code. Documentation, that's also proven various industries from healthcare. That's true. I've done e-commerce. I've used projects like my knowledge bot, head of product, ensure robust, bug-free implementations. Planning team helped us. Oh, that's a false lie. I'm going to remove that one. Start small, begin with manageable projects to grasp, right? Leverage tools that support TDD, JUnit, PyTest, yeah. Build a habit. Okay, regular programs. Why should you continue? It's not just a methodology, how you approach coding, all that. And then usually a call to action. I like it. So let's post. So as a side note, though, I typically write my post in DevTO, which natively, as you write a post, supports Markdown. So when I preview, I don't have to remove those things. So like I said, I'm kind of trying to figure out where and what use cases I want to do. Inside of this particular platform, I've got like, I think I mentioned this, basically all of my posts going all the way back to, I mean, even all of this, yeah, is all generated with this bot. So like right here, bringing the voice of the customer to life with AI. So typically I have a long conversation before I do one of these things, go through, I generate the images using ChatGPT. And then this particular one, I think I had an actual video that I did. So I had a video going through this, but all this is generated using that same process, except for it's a little bit more back and forth. I ask more questions. I ask it to create a blog post outline. So like what I did here, um, uh, I think I hit enter twice. So that's just a gap in what I have. But usually I write the thread. Yeah. So we could pick this back up real quick. And if I said, like right here, I have a thread ID. Oh, that is the thread ID. I say Python run chat. It'll pick that back up. Oh, no, 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 no. I didn't want to delete everything. I hope it didn't get that far. We'll see. It may have. And we'll move on to the next thing if it did.
Hey, Justin,
Oh,
I
it
want to
did.
give you a fast idea if I can, as
Mm-hmm.
a writing tool. Maybe you've tried doing this, but I love it like when I write a new chapter or something, a book or something, to tell Perplexity or ChatGPT, use web searches and read the following and tell me if I've left anything out, any topics out. And that's real handy because, sometimes I'll have some idea of what I want to write about, and I'll just forget about a couple topics. It'll come back and it'll say, why didn't you talk about X and Y? And I can go back to the drawing board. But if you do a lot of writing, that's another great way to use
Yeah,
these tools.
that's a good idea. I tend to, what I'll do is I'll say make an outline, and then I'll look at the outline. I'll say, can you add this? Can you do this? Move things around. Like that article was pretty long. I have it generate one section at a time. I review it, say, hey, can you add this? And then as I move it into DevTO, that's where I start manually just changing things. At that point, it has got the rough draft for me. It is it's all manual tweaks after that. It is like, even though I posted on LinkedIn, I was trying to be quick in the rapid evolving, in the fast paced, in like there is this marketing tone that I've noticed that is very indicative of ChatGPT. I've tried Claude and do some other things, and it seems to be better, but still does it sometimes. I mean, yeah. I want to kind of skip because I have just a handful of minutes left. So we talked about prompting a bit. It was it Lan? You talked about, you said, hey, how does the Trello make it into the assistant? So this is another assistant that I have that is called Head of Product. So I will link the GitHub. I said I actually have an appointment at 5:30, so I'll try to leave a couple minutes for texts or for chats, and people can ask questions if they need to later. So Head of Product, it's basically the same layout as this. It has a different prompt and a slightly different data set. So what it does though is I have a Trello board over here. It kind of does what I did for that custom GPT, but it is much more faithful in relying on things. So what I could do here is if I say like, let's go to platform OpenAI real quick just to see what he can do. So if I say assistants, right here, head of product, I'm going to go playground. Like, can you tell me what is in the to-do column on the Trello board? So he's running retrieval. Set up vanilla Next.js application. Set up vanilla JS application. Create fast API with hello world endpoint. Create fast API with hello world endpoint. Something next. So it has a limit of how many things it's actually going to pull. It pulled 3 of them, it looks like. Right. So that is fantastic. And it gives me some information. I want to say, can you help me out by writing a user story to add a NoSQL database to the fast API so that way there will be some level of persistence? Sure, I can help with that. It gives a title, business value, problem, description, acceptance criteria, and that is it. I said, don't solution, you're a product owner. And the way this magic works over here is if you look at, let's actually pull up the action. I don't know how familiar people are with GitHub Actions, but right here. So what it does is it actually has to navigate down because this is a little bit nested inside of it. So it changes directory to what's called the Trello extract. It uses Hatch, which is a Python environment management system, to pip install and get all the dependencies. It runs the tests. It does the same to this head of product, which is basically the same as that KnowledgeBot repo, just slightly tweaked. It creates the environment, runs the tests. Then what it does is it runs Trello integration, which extracts all the data from the board. Then after that, it changes it moves that extracted file into the data directory like I had set up on that thing and runs the build command, which build creates a brand new agent. And I actually got a burner OpenAI key that I'm going to get rid of once I'm done here so we can demo these things because I don't want. But like right here, if I say run build head of product, run workflow, it asks me for my OpenAI key. So I need to actually go, where do I have it? Right here. So just an FYI.
So clever to just have a disposable API key. Thank you.
Yep. So I'm going to, you can't see it anyways, but run, and it will completely build that bot and it'll update the Trello information, rebuild the bot, and publish it. So at any point in time, on a daily basis, on a whatever basis, your product owner will know everything about your board, about all your stories, everything you have going on, and can help write user stories, can do everything outside of manually review the stories. So that is the idea of that.
Everyone is invited to unmute and applaud.
So that is this particular project, and I will go through and kind of link that. And then again, I'm being quick now because I have to. I said I have a meeting. If we go back and look, the other. Oh, I went all the way to the first page. So the other use case that I really have is what I call treasure chat. So now this particular, my build failed. Oh, it was canceled. I don't know why it was canceled. Now I'm concerned. Oh, it's running. That is a previous build. So it's actually going through, and it actually did that Trello already, outputted everything from Trello, and now it moved that file, and now it's running through all those steps last time like we did. So the last one is what I called, I'm getting a little flustered because I'm running low on time. Treasure chat. So an actual potential product application of this is, I don't like finding things on Amazon because there are so many toggles, drop downs, filter selection, so on and so forth. I get frustrated. I had a use case the other day where I needed to find a particular set of compatible RAM for my son's motherboard because he wanted to upgrade it. So I don't know if anybody's ever tried to do that and make sure, like, you look on Amazon for a bunch of RAM, and then you're like, I have this motherboard, this one does. So back and forth, I struggle with this. So I found this Kaggle data set as do I have to really sign in to get to it? Continue. I think it's in my GitHub here. Was that actually the one? Yeah. So I found this Kaggle data set from 2023 of 1.4 million products from from Amazon. In a very similar process, where is it at? So the exporter in this one is a little bit fancier, but it goes through and takes that. Where's that right here? It takes those files that actually come in that download, and then it's going to put those into a Panda data frame, I believe it, or I'm sorry, a NumPy data frame. Then it's going to kind of create all the things into a single record, since they had like product things and then some other stuff. And then it's going to split that into a bunch of files, because I ran into the fact that, hey, there's file limits on the number of things, right? Like what we just looked at before. I can have up to 10,000 files, but they can only be so big and so many tokens. So I split that into 50 files and then upload that to this assistant. So then what happens is when we come to our assistants and we look at Product Scout and we go to Playground, like my particular question, because I have it in a test because it was frustrating. I have a particular motherboard, a Gigabyte H410M S2, blah, blah, blah. Can you help me find compatible RAM for this board? And then what's going to happen is, here are the different RAMs that are applicable for that board. Fancy. And you can ask it, there's 1.4 million. Does anybody have anything we want to search for real quick?
Yoga props that are good for making your back more flexible.
Okay. So hold on. So this was, I said add the third one to my list. There is something we'll see here. So this is actually doing a tool call. So I just want to say, hey, add that third one. Great, has been added to your list. But we'll check that out in a second. So you can see right here when I said add the third one to my list, it took that ASIN and added it to a list. And you wanted a yoga mat that is good for your back.
Oh, no, yoga props.
Okay. That are good for your back.
Good for flat back flexibility.
What about some yoga props that are good for back flexibility? Okay. These look fancy.
Yep.
Could you tell me about this one? How is it good for flexibility? Question mark. Okay. This is great. Add it to my list too. I don't know, we could look at what's going on there. But then we have this one also. So it says success true. My dog is trying to help me out also. Success true, submit. And then what happens is at this point, I say, I am ready to check out. Your selected items are this and this, and we could make it do a tool call and some other things. So you could actually integrate with a system at this point. Now, one thing that is challenging with this particular, when you're playing with a RAG model like this, and I don't think I have this set up playing quite nice. My dog's trying to get in here. Going through a GitHub action, but it is next on my list. At Artium, we've kind of come up with this idea of doing like a repeat test. So when I want to make sure something is correct in this world, because things are non-deterministic, right? I want even minor prompt changes can have dramatic impacts on the outcomes. So what I've got set up here is that I have this run integration, which is set to true, number of choices, which again, I don't think I actually have the action working yet on the front end yet. But what we would do is we would say like this repeat AI test, run workflow, it'd be the AI key and the number of times you want to repeat it. So I'm still working through that, but I have this particular motherboard, just the question I asked. I set up a chat session, I load the data, and I run the test that many number of times looking for failures, right? So if I put it up to like, let's say 10, and then I execute this test, what it is going to do, it is going to run it 10 times. And I am looking for a threshold of, let's say 80, 90, like pick my percentage of what I want. I could run it 100 times. I mean, but what it's going to do, it is going to actually send that one message. It is going to extract the ASINs from the response. So what we saw over here, it is going, I have a regex that kind of splits it out, grabs those ASINs, and then make sure that each and every single one of the ASINs listed are in the original data set. Ask it over and over and over and over again. And sometimes it will fail. Sometimes it will lie. So far, it's doing good. We have 3 out of 10. And I think that's where I'm going to have to conclude. I got a couple minutes for questions if anybody has anything. Thoughts, feedback?
I'll give you feedback. That was a great presentation. Thank you. That was really fun.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like I could nerd out. Like, honestly, even in the slide deck that I set up, there was so much more to talk about.
Yeah, maybe we could come back and do part 2. I was thinking we could even bring an author who is not that nerdy, and you could show us how you would incorporate this writer's stuff into a system, do it right live in front of us.
Yeah, we could do something like that. And
I would and people can use their virtual thumbs if they like that idea.
And Lan asked a question: do assistants offer more customization compared to custom GPTs? Is it mainly more automated and programmatic approach to get functionality similar to custom GPTs? It is, yes. I have found that the assistants follow your instructions way better. In a custom GPT, if if you look at it, you can choose web browsing, you can choose image generation, and you can choose code interpretation. ChatGPT is adding a bunch of things ahead of your prompt. It's if you keep on messing with the GPT, you eventually can get it to spit those things out, even though it's not supposed to. But it is far less control, and you don't have like right here what I just showed with this. We ran that test 10 times with asking for this particular RAM options, and out of 10 times, every ASIN listed was in the original data set. Now that is a challenge to do sometimes. That is almost production ready. I would probably run it hundreds of times to see, and I still could have got lucky 10 times in a row. And we would ask a lot more questions. We would make sure that Eric's yoga mat shows up every time, or things that it should not know aren't in there, and so on and so forth. And Sophie says, "Hi everyone, I joined the meeting late. Seems like that chapter you're using from the version I get." Sophie, are you using the premium version?
Oh no, just
Yes.
the free version.
Yes. It is, if you're going to start playing around either with the custom GPTs or use it's worth the $20 a month. It saves me so much time. I respond to emails like at work. Like I don't know how to live without this thing anymore as an engineer.
Oh, so I should use the premium version, and then I can do lots of things.
Yeah. So, I mean, what happens is the chat GPT here, you can actually, 3.5 is great. Like it does a lot of things, but as you get into 4 and 4.0, it's like the difference between like 3.5 is like a know-it-all teenager who'll make up shit to you. 4.0 and above is like maybe like a 30-some-year-old adult who knows a lot of things and sometimes trips over it. That's all.
Let's see. Thank you, thank you. And
No problem.
yeah, so I am in accounting. So how do I use ChatGPT for my work? That's so many times I think I tested ChatGPT, Copilot, and Gemini. I think Copilot is actually better.
Okay. So I would, again, with the 4.0, I know you could ask it to, hey, looking at this CSV of journal entries, can you try to classify them in XYZ categories for me? I would give it a little bit more than that, but it might be able to do things from like automatic classification. You could detect abnormal transactions, a bunch of other things.
Cool.
Okay. And I hate to bail, but I do got to go because I got to get to an appointment by 5:30.
Hey,
So,
Justin. Hey, Justin,
yes.
thanks so much. I look forward to having you back to do the second chunk of this. And definitely bring a lab with you. That's Black Labs are our favorite here.
Yes. I put my LinkedIn in the chat real quick. Reach out for any questions, comments, concerns, code, things I talked about. Happy and always willing to share. All right. See everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Justin. By the way, for people who came late, I put in where you can see this stream as well as other streams. Please subscribe to Code Borging on YouTube. Also, I put in the Facebook group, and when I get a hold of his slides, I will stick it into the is.gd Code Borging slides. That's where I'm going to be keeping slides.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think Justin's ahead. Right. Mark, thanks for showing up. You certainly added a ton. Does anybody, and then I think next week, we're really going to geek out. I think we're probably going to be doing kind of a beginner's guide to GPT programming. So that one might be, really quite programmer focused. And uh, anybody want to say anything before I shut the meeting? Oh, please, everybody save
thank you.
the chat. Go ahead, Mark.
I just thanks for setting this up, Eric.
Thanks, Mark. Please use my Calendly. I'd like to start
Yep.
working on what we can learn from you, Mark. You obviously
Yeah,
have a
but
ton to
I
teach.
would not be polished like Justin. You would see a couple
You don't
of
have to be as polished
suffers
as
with
this.
me.
There's a lot you can do without making the level of investment that he made in polish. That was lovely. But please do let YouTube know that you're interested. The code borging, you'll see that link there. Please subscribe so that YouTube knows that YouTube doesn't know we're in Zoom, right? So it doesn't know we're here. Okay. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks,
Eric,
everybody. That was
could
great.
you also share the YouTube channel in the chat?
Yes, I just did. Do you see? It's just a few.
Uh,
I'll do it. I'll send it in again. The URL that ends with streams.
yeah, I did.
Copy the link
That's
there.
cool.
I mean, that all the streams, I have a couple of junk ones I need to delete there, but that were just from tests. But this, you can listen to this entire talk from the beginning by going to that stream.
That's very awesome. Look forward to the future section.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Eric, and everyone. Thank you.